All right, let's dive into Yuval Noah Harari's incredible book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And it really boils down to one huge, profound question. In this crazy age of constant, disorienting change, can we even understand the world we've created anymore?
Harari really sets the stage with this quote. I mean, think about it. We're just deluged with information, right? So much of it is just noise. And in all that chaos, he says that clarity, just being able to see what's actually going on, isn't just a skill, it's a superpower. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down his core arguments and try to find some of that clarity.
So to really get a grip on why we feel so confused right now, Harari says we've got to look back. We have to understand the huge, powerful stories that basically ran the last century. Because, at our core, that's how we think, right? Humans think in stories, not in facts or boring equations.
And this timeline, it just simplifies the whole thing so well. The 20th century was basically this giant battle of big ideas, of grand stories. You look at 1938, you've got three major players on the field: fascism, communism, and liberalism. Fast forward to 68, World War II has knocked fascism out of the ring, so now it's just a two-horse race. And then you get to 1998, the Soviet Union has fallen, and boom, the liberal story of democracy and free markets is the last one standing. It felt like the undisputed champion of the world, the only game in town.
But then, just 20 years later, we get to this. Zero. Harari's conclusion is, well, it's pretty stark. He says that by 2018, that last global story, the one we thought had won, had completely collapsed. And it left us totally shell-shocked, completely disoriented. Having one big story to believe in is comforting, but having none? That's terrifying. It feels like the map has just disappeared.
Okay, so what in the world happened? How did that triumphant liberal story, the one that promised peace and prosperity for everyone if we all just joined hands, globalized, and opened up our markets, how did it fall apart so fast?
Well, Harari points to one huge event, the 2008 financial crisis. He says that was the breaking point. It was this massive seismic shock to the whole system, and it just shattered the faith of millions of people. All of a sudden, that promise that globalization was good for everybody started to feel like a total lie, like it was all just a game rigged for a tiny elite.
And the fallout from that, it was pretty much immediate. People got disillusioned and fast. They started pulling back from this big global idea and retreating to what felt safer, more local. As that belief in the global project just crumbled, people scrambled for shelter in the things they knew. These nostalgic ideas about nation and religion.
So get this, at the exact same time that our old map for the world is failing us, we're getting hit with what Harari says is maybe the biggest challenge our species has ever faced. We're talking about twin technological revolutions that are about to completely reshape, everything.
Okay, so this challenge comes from two massive revolutions happening at once. On one hand, you've got infotech, information technology. We've been getting good at that for centuries, right? Learning how to control the world outside of us. But on the other hand, you've got biotech. And this is giving us this mind-blowing power to control the world inside us, our bodies, our brains, our biology itself.
Now, here's the crucial part. It's what happens when you combine those two. When you merge infotech and biotech, the result is the power to literally engineer and manufacture life. We're talking about a godlike ability here. And our old stories, the liberal story that was all about individual freedom and human rights, it's just completely, totally unprepared to deal with something this huge.
And this combination, this convergence of technology, creates two threats that are unlike anything humanity has ever seen before. First, the threat that huge numbers of people will just become irrelevant. And second, the threat that our own minds can be hacked.
Let's break that down. In the 20th century, the big struggle was against exploitation. The masses were essential for the factories and the armies, but they were being taken advantage of. But Harari says the new fear, the 21st century fear, is irrelevance. As AI gets smarter and smarter, what happens when the powerful and the wealthy just don't need most people anymore? And here's the thing. It's a lot easier to fight against exploitation than it is to fight against being completely irrelevant.
Okay, and at the exact same time all this is happening, that other threat is growing, the idea of hacking humans. Our whole society is kind of built on this idea of free will. But science is starting to show us that our feelings, love, fear, anger, they aren't some magical spiritual thing.
They're basically just super complex biochemical algorithms, right? Calculations our bodies are making to help us survive, refined over millions of years. And the scary part? If they're just algorithms, they can be hacked. And listen, this isn't some far-off science fiction movie. This is happening right now. Just think about the process. Biometric sensors on your watch, on your phone, they're collecting data about you all the time. Then, big data algorithms crunch all that data to understand your personality, your emotional triggers, maybe better than you do. And once the system knows how to push your buttons, it can start to manipulate your feelings and your decisions. And slowly, without you even noticing, authority shifts away from you and over to the algorithm.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable question. It might sound totally crazy right now, but just think about it for a second. We already let algorithms choose our music, tell us the fastest way to get to work, even curate our news. As they get better and better at knowing what makes us tick, are we eventually going to hand over the biggest decisions of our lives to them too?
So, okay, here we are. The old stories are in ruins. We've got these massive, unprecedented challenges barreling down on us. It leaves us with one incredibly urgent job. We have got to come up with a new story, a new map for where humanity is going. So where do we look for this new story? Can we just go back to the old ones? Harari's answer is a pretty firm no. He argues that going back to nationalism or ancient religions is just nostalgia. It's a fantasy. Because those stories, they were built for a totally different world. They just don't have the tools to solve today's global problems, things like ecological collapse or the rise of AI.
So if we can't go back, what's the first step forward? Well, Harari suggests something that sounds a little weird at first. He says the goal isn't to immediately find an answer. The goal is to change our mindset. We need to switch from panic mode to bewilderment. See, panic is when you think you know exactly what's happening and it's bad. But bewilderment is more humble. It's admitting, wow, I really don't understand what's going on here. And it's only from that humble place that we can actually start to see things clearly.
And in the end, Harari leaves us with this one final, incredibly powerful challenge. The technology to re-engineer life isn't coming. It's already here. And if we, as thoughtful, conscious human beings, don't come up with a really solid story for what we want to do with that power, then the decision is just going to be made for us. It'll be made by the blind forces of the market and the cold, unfeeling logic of algorithms. The future of life itself is literally on the table. And the only question that matters is, what do we want it to be?